What's up, folks? How y'all doing? So I wanted to talk about the whole eating of the cat thing out in Ohio. And what it is I'm about to say is my own take. I think it's a bit of a basic take, and from the research that I've actually have underwent, and I don't particularly have any expert opinions, let alone anybody I could go to talk about African religion slash spiritualities. But what makes it fascinating for me is why would somebody like myself want to look into different types of spiritualities and stuff like that? Well, one, I think they're fucking cool. I mean, it's very cool. I want to see what makes, whether it is voodoo, hoodoo, Santeria, Ifa, Palo Mayombe, any of these, whether it's out in the OG or the diaspora, Louisiana, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Cuba, Jamaica, I'm not quite sure, but I think they have a little thing. But whatever the case is, I like to know and see what makes people tick. And so the way that I see this is through their rituals, through their beliefs, and the interesting symbology behind it. Fuck, even out in Mexico, they have some really cool fucking shit where they're where you get to see Santa Muerte, Holy Death, and everything. I'm learning all about this stuff because like I stated, I find it truly fascinating. But if there's one thing that I kind of anticipated over the last several years is that maybe at some point we are going to start to see some crazy headlines like this, for example, eventually coming to a city near you or some random city, Springfield. Maybe the Simpsons do live there, maybe not. But anyways, this Springfield. I think there's a Springfield out in not Ohio, but Illinois, maybe. So I have a basic take on this, and so I don't have anyone I could go to. I don't know any practitioner. But I'm starting to see why a lot of these books, when it comes to these sort of religions, are either gatekept or at the very least there's not a lot of information because it is scarce. I can't find too many of these types of books because I want to absorb and just read it, and it's a lot of fucking fun to read up about it. But then, hence the whole human sacrifice expose book, which I got a few months ago because I thought, hey, this would be really cool. Like I said, you get into the mind of people or the story, like the zeitgeist. What the fuck is going on? So I kind of had a feeling that something like this at some point would happen. But my opinion on the whole cat situation is that I think this is a bit of an isolated incident. I think it's an isolated incident that may not have the context of anything spiritual, ritualistic in nature. It was most likely, I think, I cannot prove it, this is my own opinion. I think that it was merely just sensationalized and we're trying to bring about the whole satanic panic style of a moral panic again, because voodoo and all of these sort of spiritual paths, religions, are different. But out in the United States, though, it's not as if some of these people didn't practice it before. I mean, there's some YouTubers that I watch that are like left-hand path practitioners, and they talk about utilizing this. And some of them had family out in the Bronx, out in New York, and they live in Miami. So, shit like that. So it gives you a little sense of perspective. That's what I think was going on. But I do believe that there is a segment of the population that will definitely engage in the most extreme case of humans or animal sacrifice, or both, maybe not. I do believe that. Whether they're doing it in a humane way or not, I do think there's a segment. I do think that they do exist. And so you're gonna start to see headlines saying that it's part of their culture and blah blah blah, and it's like, yeah, okay, it is part of their culture, totally, yeah, I get it. But I think where we have to understand this whole thing is it depends on the context where it's coming from. Like if you're out in the US, I'm pretty sure there are ways to, let's say if you're going to be killing an animal, there's a human way of doing it, and so what is it, you're going to be intentionally trying to kill it for whatever ritualistic purposes. You're going to consume the body and eat it. It's not as if Europeans didn't do the same thing either, especially if you're like, let's say for example, the Southern Italians, you would have the animal and you use every bit of the animal because, hey, why the fuck not? Why waste not type of thing. But that's their mentality. And even the drinking of blood. If you guys know about the occult significance of blood, yeah, there is that aspect there too. But just a very little bit of blood goes a long way. And for you to actually just go and be nutty with it, then there's a bit of a fucking problem, I would say. But yeah, I do believe that there is a segment of the population that will engage in such a thing. Be it out in America, be it out in Africa. To me, when it's out in Africa, it makes sense that they're going to be a little bit more. It's kind of like the Agori out in India. When I say the Agori, I mean like these are exclusively left-hand path practitioners. Like for them, everything, there's no taboos. They're liberated. They see the divinity in everything, and they're just going to do what they got to do. How is this manifested? Well, they will put cremated remains on their face. They will engage in cannibalism. They will engage in necrophilia. They will, what the fuck else? Meditate upon dead bodies. Drink out of skulls, real human skulls. I wouldn't be surprised if they drank their own fucking piss and shit. And stuff like that. So it's because it's an extreme culture. So it makes sense that it's gonna happen there. But even out even out there are some practitioners that don't engage in that extreme form, and this is like their way of getting in touch with the inner Shiva, getting in touch and tapping into their own inner divinity, like in that context. But I'm not saying that I would do such a thing. You could do representations of that. I do like the idea of having a skull. Even though my altar has a skull. And the image that I like has a skull too. It's not a real one. Well, human remains are very expensive. But my point is, it's there. There's ways around it. So if it's out in Africa, it's extreme concerning their culture. At least not the validity, but yeah, I guess the validity of it. Not that it's not true or anything, but there is something to consider of the spectrum of, this is kind of like vanilla versus the extreme, right? It's all about your sense of perception. And perspective too. Now out here, I would be surprised if they actually did do that, but I think it is very unfair to be painting the spiritualities and these practices with the same broad brush because, look, someone happened to be Haitian at the fucking time. But the idea of sacrifice, let me just put it to you this way. I'm going to put in the description what it is I've copied and pasted. I think this is actually a very good, nuanced point of view, but I'm going to be quoting an author who, in my opinion, has a very based, and I don't usually say that word, a based view on sacrifice. I pretty much agree with it, so I'm going to so I'm going to just put it in the description when I have the chance. This author wrote one of the infamous books that brought demonolatry to the forefront for left-hand path practitioners. Her name is S. Connolly, and she actually does have a YouTube channel. Her view on sacrifice, and the one thing that I just want to take from that whole quote has to do with sacrifice means to make something sacred, and the rest you'll do what you want for yourself. Read the quote, see what it's about, because it's very fucking long, but I think it makes sense. So yeah, that to make sacred. People are going to hear this and say, okay, but killing of another person. Well, let me just put it to you this way. When it comes to invocation and being possessed, if you're a Santoro or Santorian priest, whatever, right? A priest or a priestess, I think the idea of invocation and possession is seen as a positive thing, because you're actually communing with the divine. And I think it's like the passing of a spirit or something, like a few times a month or certain times of the year where possession will take place, and they see it as a good thing, where here in the West, everybody has this very mainstream view of possession like it's like 1973 or just 76 when The Exorcist fucking came out. If you've never experienced possession, you're really not going to know what it's like. I have experienced possession when I was my first time. And it was by accident, I would believe, but it was a positive experience. It was more like a moment of inspiration. It's like, aha! But you felt like something had taken over you, and you were like co-piloting. And I was 10, 11. I think I might have said this story. But it was really fucking fascinating. It was more like for creative purposes, and it just came out. And I think in this case, it was like the manifestation of my demonic self actually communicating with me. That's what I think it was. And I knew it was something else because I was never able to do that again in a very long time. So I knew it was something going on. So I see it as a positive thing. Some people are possessed. They have like a bad trip. Whereas it comes to sacrifice, people see sacrifice as a bad fucking thing. Well, it depends on what it is you're sacrificing. Let's minus the animals. Let's minus human beings here for a sec. All cultures have fucking done that, by the way. So let's not act like we're so freaking innocent out here in the West. Everybody makes sacrifices. Everyone does it. For me, for example, I'm sacrificing money and time right now in order to achieve something greater later on. And hopefully I achieve those goals, but I want to achieve those goals because my will is there. And so you're making that thing sacred, but as soon as you're gonna be like perverting and the whole bullshit comes around, I think it's gonna be going against natural eternal law. And that's basically it. You have to understand how these things fucking work, and I'm still in the learning process. But to me, a lot of people are going to listen to this and say, well, are you condoning such a thing? No, I'm not condoning such a thing. But I also do believe in, not condoning it, in the sense of if it's not in a humane way and you're here in North America, yes, I will have a problem with that. I also forgot to mention that some people might even be using dead bodies in their rituals. So if you happen to find some body snatching up in 2024, don't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if that shit was happening now over here in Montreal. I mean, body snatching was a thing once upon a time for autopsies and experiments when the cemeteries were not being overlooked and protected. These were Quebecers, mind you. So anyways, I thought I would just try to not butcher this whole fucking thing and just give my opinion out there. But yeah, so I think it's a little bit of a skewed situation, but in terms of things happening out in Africa, that's one thing. Over here, if it's not done in a humane way, I have a problem with it, but you could always do a workaround. There's always ways to work around this shit. But painting people the same broad brush, a la Satanic Panic style, not cool, because we already know that there's going to be some perpetuated lies to screw with people. Not as if we haven't seen that in the last 4 years. What event happened that shit was going on? I forget. I don't have that memory like I used to. Anyways, folks, that's my opinion on this whole thing. Peace the fuck out.